This is your video for level 3A, the distributive property and the greatest common factor. So our goal today is I can rewrite a sum as a product using the distributive property and the GCF. That probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now, but it'll make a little bit more sense after we kind of go over it. I've got some steps here. I'm not going to go through and read them all right now. I'm instead going to go through them as we do the problems. Okay, now when you first saw these problems, you probably thought, wow, this is awesome. We are just adding these numbers together. That's going to be so easy. But that is not what we are doing. We are actually rewriting these numbers in a new and different way. And you might kind of be wondering, why are we doing this? So the reason we do this is when you get to pre-algebra and algebra, this skill is going to be very important. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to look at the first step. So our first problem is 16 plus 24. So we're going to find the GCF of the two numbers. So my two numbers being 16 and 24. First thing I'm going to do is find the greatest common factor. Now, hopefully, eventually we get to the point where we get so good at GCF that we can just look at two numbers and we can tell what the greatest common factor is. That will be a really great skill. It's going to help you to be successful in algebra and other math classes in the future. If you're already to that point, that is fantastic. If not, let's go ahead and go through how to find the GCF. So we're going to make a list. Okay, 1 and 16, 2 and 8. 3 does not go into 16, but 4 does. So 4 and 4. I've met myself in the middle, so I'm done. 1 and 24. 2 and 12 are another pair. Remember, these factors are pairs of numbers that we multiply together to get the product, to get the answer. Okay, 4 and 6. 5 does not go in, and 6, I've met myself in the middle. So here's all my factors. So I'm going to look for what's in common. So I've got a 1 in both, a 2 in both, a 4 in both, an 8, and that's it. So I'm going to pick the greatest one, which is 8. So the GCF of my two numbers is 8. Okay, so that's step 1. I found that was 8. Step 2 says draw parentheses and write the GCF in front of the parentheses. For example, if the GCF was 5, you would write 5 and then some parentheses that are just going to be blank in the middle for now. You want to make your parentheses a good distance apart because we are going to be writing about 3 things in there. So I'm going to write my GCF, which was 8, and I'm going to draw my parentheses, leaving some space in between because I've got some things to write. Okay, step 3 says decide what number you multiply times the GCF to get the original numbers. These two numbers go inside the parentheses. So you're going to ask yourself, what do I multiply times 8 to get 16? Well, 8 times 2 is 16. If you weren't sure about that, you could always check your factor pairs and say, well, what did I multiply times my 8 times my greatest common factor to get 16? Well, I multiplied it times 2. So if you've got that written out, you can use that. Then I'm going to ask myself, what did I multiply times 8 to get 24? Once again, I can look over here at my 8, and if I've got them kind of paired off, I can see that 8 times 3 is 24. So I'm going to put a 3 here. Okay, so I put my two numbers, and I want to put them in the same order. Like 8 times 2 is 16, and 16 is the first number. So I want my 2 to be my first number. I wouldn't want to like switch these around. I want to keep it the same as the original problem. Step 4 says put a plus sign between the numbers. So I'm going to put a plus sign right here. This is how I would rewrite this sum. So sum is when we're adding as a product. So I'm rewriting it using the distributive property. Okay, I want you to go ahead and pause the video and try the next problem and see how you do, and then unpause it so we can go over the answers. Hopefully you had a chance to pause the video and go through the second problem. So I'm going to show you what the answer should be. So you should find the greatest common factor of 25 and 45, which will be 5. So 5 is going to go, we're going to write that down, put down our parentheses, and then I'm going to ask myself, 5 times what is 25? 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times what is 45? 5 times 9 is 45, and I put my plus sign in between. So this was our correct answer.